Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. Welcome back to Grok Talk. Thanks again to David Gaithal, who's got a bull by the horns. Boy, what a tough gig that is. So anyway, we are Grok Talk. I am Steve McDonald here with Mike Rogers, Jane Cormier. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, and of course at GraniteGrok.com. Now rebroadcast daily from 9 to 11 a.m. at GraniteGrok.com, at Speaker.com, and TheRockNHCR.com. Where was I going with this? We have a guest that we weren't expecting, but we're always happy to have on the phone. And I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but Mike does. So, good morning, Pete Ingemi. How are you, sir?
Hello. Well, out of the hospital, which is always a good thing, and ready to talk with Grok on Grok Talk.
Well, here we are. Let's talk. Mike. Hang on. I got to turn your headset up because you were on the phone.
Right. Pete, first of all, thanks so much for joining us. I'm glad you made it home, and we'll talk more about that later. I was taken with your column of a couple of days ago that's titled, Dole's Not Afraid of a GOP Loss with Cruz. He's afraid of a GOP win with Cruz. And I think that's the point. Those lily-livered, yellow non-Republicans down there in D.C. are scared to death that he'll stop their gravy train stone cold like Superman on the tracks and put them out of their comfortable little jobs.
Well, thanks for having me on again, guys. And I want to point out that this piece is a very good piece. And there's a companion piece which actually went up less than 5 minutes before I called. I was really scrambling to get it finished before we got on the air, called Pastor Kelly and Nate Silver Help Decode the GOP Establishment. But to the original piece you were talking about, it leads with a quote from Senator Trent Lott from 2010 that has often been forgotten, that says, as soon as they get here, we need to co-opt them, when he was talking about the Tea Party people.
He said, we don't need any more Jim DeMints. If they get here, we need to co-opt them.
Right, and even before that, people forget, and a lot of people say, oh, the Tea Party just came about because of Barack Obama, but people forget that back in 2004, there was the Pork Busters movement, which you'll recall as a blogger and such, which was conservatives talking about not just giving out pork, and they were lambasted by people like Trent Lott, people like John Boehner, and so forth at the time. And I'm going to quote again from the piece. I'll say this about the so-called pork busters. I'm getting damn tired of hearing from them. They've been nothing but trouble ever since Katrina. We in Mississippi have not asked for more than we deserve. And it was talking about the runaway spending. I mean, there's a myth that conservatives in the GOP were saying nothing about runaway spending when George Bush was president and we had the House. That's just false. We were screaming about it. But what happened was the Republicans in the House objected and fought against us, and then suddenly, after 2006, when they lost everything, suddenly they were born-again deficit hawks because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the power to appropriate, so it didn't matter if they opposed spending. And this is what the GOP establishment has done consistently, in that they have, when they've needed the votes of conservatives, they have said, oh, come along with us. We need to stick together for party unity. But when it comes to uniting behind a conservative, that's a different story. And Ted Cruz and even Marco Rubio are fairly solid conservatives. And in the second piece, Pastor Kelly points out that Rubio's ACU score is 98%. His big sin, of course, is the Gang of Eight bill, and that's a pretty big sin in my opinion. But
it's huge.
It's a huge sin, but in terms of Rubio's record, it's an aberration. Of course, compared to Ted Cruz, Cruz is 100% rated, and as I tweeted out yesterday, I'm sure there's something I disagree with Ted Cruz on, and if I really dug into his record deeper, I could probably find something. But I've been writing about him for years, and I haven't found it yet. So,
no, he's the real deal.
These guys are solid conservatives, and the establishment doesn't want them in. And Cruz is a real danger to win, despite the fact that Trump is as high as he is.
Yeah, I mean, just look at what they're doing to Rubio right now. As you say, apart from immigration, his record's very good. Club for Growth had kind words to say about him in terms of his fiscal rectitude, at least, if not his other aspects. And so on the Rhino side of the house, essentially Bush, Christie, Kasich are all trampling on Rubio in an attempt to become the second or third place person in New Hampshire. And it's ugly, but also great fun to watch. As for once,
I think it's also significant considering something.
Yeah.
I mean, in my new piece, I say that there's one of two possibilities that could happen here. That the establishment is still looking to nominate a George Bush, and the plan might be to take out both Cruz and Rubio early. Now, Cruz, you have to use all the big guns against, because as you might remember from my interview after he won the
603 Alliance Grassroots Caucus. Yeah.
He has a huge ground. Back then in October, he had his full ground game in 24 states fully paid for by automatic contributions. So, and that was before he was doing as good as he was doing now.
And they say he's got 12,000 people on the ground in Iowa. 12,000.
Amazing.
But it's not just Iowa. He has a ground game in every state. The first 24 states, he had a ground game in back in October that was completely paid for. His fundraising has been through the roof since then. How much of a bigger ground game does he have in those states now? Or how many other states is he fully paid for with just the automatic contributions, not even counting larger contributions that are coming in? All hard money, so they got to go all in. But in New Hampshire, as you and I and everybody else know, everyone's hitting Rubio. Now, Rubio is not a threat to win in New Hampshire. But they have to take out Rubio before Florida for Jeb to be a viable alternative.
Yeah,
and Jeb has enough money that can come in. There's a lot of Bush money that, if they thought he was viable, might stay. The only way he stays viable is if Rubio is gone. He can't finish behind Rubio in Florida.
Well, it's nice to see, sorry, Steve, that there's actually disagreement in the establishment camp too, because one part of the establishment camp wants to take out Rubio and have Bush win, and the money that's still behind Bush, such as it is, wants to do that. On the other hand, another part of the establishment has been vocally warning Bush and his super PAC to lay off a Rubio in case they damage their one last chance.
It's an interesting thing.
Gonna go look to see. My question was, isn't Bush like fourth or fifth in Florida?
Yeah, he's not even leading in his own state.
Now,
yeah.
And the people ahead of him are Cruz and Rubio.
Florida primary.
He cannot finish behind Rubio in Florida.
Trump,
but
Cruz.
Rubio doesn't have the ground game.
Wednesday, January 20th, Florida Atlantic University has Trump at 48, Cruz at 16, Rubio at 11, Bush at 10.
Yeah, I read today, too, that I read early this morning that Rubio canceled a ton of his ads in New Hampshire. So Rubio knows, I think, the camp knows that that's not going to fly. And they're trying to, obviously reserve funds if they're canceling, television ads.
Yeah. If they can knock off Rubio early, then the alternatives to Trump. I mean, think about it. If you lose Cruz and Rubio, who's the conservative alternative in the GOP race? Is it Rand Paul, the Libertarian? I don't think so. Is it Carly Fiorina? Is it Chris Christie, who's much more acceptable to the establishment? Is it Ben Carson, who these guys think they can beat fairly easy? Those are the. And think about it. Either one of them would be the first Hispanic at the top of a GOP ticket. Yet
they're scared, and yet they're scared to death because one of them is going to shut off all of their perks, and the other one is going to cut down the government to fiscal terms at least.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is having Castro rehearse his Spanish so he can be a running mate to try and save her, if she's savable, of course. But I think it's the same war in the establishment. Now, in terms of Trump, I think, as I said the very day, actually I should say the day after Trump's initial speech, that anyone who discounts him is making a mistake. There's people that I respect that we both know who've been on the Trump bandwagon even before he announced. And I'm a big Palin fan. I'm not going to dump on Palin for endorsing Trump any more than I would dump on you if you picked a candidate other than Cruz or anybody else. I mean, I wouldn't expect someone to dump on Glenn Beck because he picks Cruz any more than Palin for picking Trump, because there's a lot of good choices out there.
Yeah, I still think Trump's not everything he's saying he is.
Oh, I know. The question is he St. Paul? Is he Ella McGantry? Is he, how you had 9/11 conservatives? Is he a Barack Obama conservative?
Yes, he is. That's what he is. I mean, it's hope and change, make America great again. That's what it is. And I disagree with you totally about dumping, the quote dumping, and here's why. We all know good conservatives that have fought the battles here in New Hampshire to, serve conservatism. And some of these folk jumped on the Trump bandwagon early, even though they understood that policy-wise this guy was an anathema to conservatism. They are still sticking with them and with him, and I'm hearing again and again and again from these people saying, well, if Cruz wins, we'll support him, right? Because you know what? They know that Ted Cruz is the better candidate, but they got stuck on the Trump bandwagon, and now they can't turn back. But they're gonna do us a big favor after the war has been fought in the primary, right? They're gonna come out and do us a big favor, and they're gonna support Cruz. I think it's big of them, and I'll tell you what, I'm gonna still dump on them because that's our right to do. And once we give that up, we're finished. We don't. The dump thing is a word that people use to silence. We have the right to speak. We don't have necessarily the right to threaten or be, really crass and negative and hurtful. But we do have the right to speak clearly and concisely.
We have the right to speak, but I am not, as I don't know that there's an ulterior motive for not going to Cruz over Trump. I mean, I endorsed Cruz September 30th. So I've been on Cruz's bandwagon openly for a while. I don't like to say to a person, well, you're supporting someone under false pretenses. And like I said, it's very possible that Trump is that Barack Obama was Trump's 9/11 in the sense of where conservatism is. But again, this is like he could be St. Paul at the time that he came to the apostle and they're saying, "Are you kidding me?"
No,
but we don't know. But with Cruz, we know.
Absolutely.
Cruz has the record.
You're absolutely right. But you see, the thing is I keep saying this on social media because I'm really active out there right now, posting stuff that I feel is supportive of what is a viable, vetted record with Ted Cruz, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm constantly being told, "Why are you being so negative? Why are you talking against other candidates?" Well, you tell me, how do you have a debate with anybody?
There seems to be a lot of the attempt to shut down the debate.
There it is.
That's just foolish.
That's right, and that's what I'm talking about. That's not going to help the cause, because when we sit down and we shut up, there is no debate. There is no way to vet these guys. This guy Trump is dangerous. I say it again for all my conservative friends out there that think that they're going to be behind the guy that's going to win. Well, you know what? We didn't want Barack to win, and he won on the same sloppy, hope and changey thing. And now we're looking at Trump doing the same thing. This is so wrong. We waited for decades to get a good constitutional conservative to run for this office. Now we have him, and we have folks that will go to the side and say, you know what, but, and they go behind this guy. I think it's atrocious.
Oh, I would agree, but I would also say that if Trump is the nominee, I'll vote for him over Clinton without a question, because I know what Hillary Clinton. I know that Hillary Clinton is willing to leave Americans to die in Benghazi.
Mm-hmm. True.
We have doubts about Trump, and all those doubts are legitimate. And because he has a personal record, and those doubts are legitimate, although he did stand up for the Miss America thing in 2009. Everyone forgot about that. I actually found my post on it that I had completely forgotten from 2009, him defying the media. Everyone was shocked that he had done it. But we know that Hillary will leave Americans to die, and I will not stay home or change something else and put a commander-in-chief and reward a person like that as commander-in-chief.
Mm-hmm.
It just cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
It would be evil. to do that. But I am completely behind Ted Cruz. But I'm saying that the GOP establishment does not want an actual Tea Partier in there.
They don't. They lost it over Palin. They lost it over Cruz. Let us not forget, and I'll make this quick, Steve, that all the maneuvering in terms of the primary rules was meant to shut out Cruz, and then they got trumped. They didn't know Trump was coming. It shook the entire thing up. And Cruz is basically like the Frankenstein that got out of the cage. They have brought Trump and Cruz upon themselves, and they left Cruz alone long enough that he is now too strong for them to defeat. And I actually believe that.
I thoroughly believe that he's a ground game in every state, just about. And in my opinion, unless Trump wins the nomination delegates outright for the convention, Cruz is going to make it to the convention alive. If Cruz makes it to the convention alive, I wouldn't bet against Cruz.
No, nor would we bet against Trump picking him as Veep, which would help keep Trump on the straight and narrow.
Frankly, if I was Trump, I would promise. If I was Cruz, I would promise to put Trump in charge of building the wall if elected. If I was Trump, I would promise that the first opening in the Supreme Court goes to Ted Cruz. And I'll tell you that if there's one thing I'm worried about with Trump, because I have a gut that it's not going to be as bad as a lot of people think with him, it's the Supreme Court.
Yep, got it.
And if he put Cruz on the Supreme Court, I'd love it. But I'd love more for Cruz to serve as president and then later be appointed to the Supreme Court, like William Howard Taft did. He would be the second president ever to go to the Supreme Court from the presidency.
All right, we're out of time. How do people reach you, sir?
They can reach me at the techguyblog.com. I also, by the way, though I'm not on the radio anymore, I have a podcast, and if you subscribe, even if it's as little as $1 a month or whatever you subscribe at, you will get my podcast weekly. I'll be recording it later today and talking about things like this as well.
Hey, shoot us a quick link or an update and an email about that so we don't forget.
TechGuyBlog.com.
All right.
Thank you, Pete. Take care. Be well. We'll call you later.
All right. Thanks a lot, Pete.
All of you, thanks for having me.
Yep, we'll see you. All right. That was Pete. We'll be right back with, I forgot. Who's my next guest? Rick Manning.
Rick
We'll
Manning.
be right back.
Excellent.